Coach T.C. Taylor and Jackson State suffers an embarrassing loss on their homecoming to Bama State. This is inexcusable, and essentially probably just watched their chances of making it back to the SWAC championship game for the third year in a row. Probably just watched it in. Let's talk about it. And where they go from here after the bumper. Stay tuned. What is going on, everybody? What is going on, everybody? My name is JeffLightsyJr. This is the Victory Formation Sports Show right here on JeffLightsJr. YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your content. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, a like, share, subscribe, and a notification bell. Now, if I tell you just before the game, if I would have told you that Alabama State starting quarterback Damian Stewart would only throw for 80 yards, only have 5 completions. If I told you Alabama State as a team would only have 7 completions in the game and wouldn't have a rusher guy running the ball go over 47 yards for the game, you would think that that would equal a Jackson State win. Well, you would be wrong. Because somehow, some way on JSU's homecoming with a quarterback that couldn't hit wide open wide receivers, for a quarterback that only had 5 completions, and a team that ran, only had less than what, 150 yards, had less than 200 yards total, that they would beat Jackson State 24-19. How would you explain that? How can you explain that? When Jackson State's quarterback, Jason Brown, threw for 30 completions, he had over 230 yards on his own. You had the running backs for JSU all averaging, like Irv Mulligan, Moultrie. They both averaged over 5 yards per carry. And somehow, some way, JSU still lost this game. Well, they lost this game because their offense just wasn't dynamic at all. They were getting yards, but they couldn't turn those yards into touchdowns. They were getting points, but the points were coming in forms of field goals and not touchdowns. It's somehow, some way, you lose to a Bama State team that really was reeling. This is an Alabama State team that lost to Southern. Like, they lost to Southern. This is an Alabama State team that struggled with BCU. This is an Alabama State team that just hasn't been very good this year. They just haven't. I mean, it just is what it is. Actually, I take that back. They beat Southern, but they lost to FAMU. They lost to Alcorn. They struggled with Bethune-Cookman. And now you allow them to come into your house on your homecoming game and beat you 24-19 with their quarterback only throwing 5 completions, with their team only throwing for 7 completions total, having less than 200 yards total offense. That just can't happen. And that is just it's a bad loss for Coach T.C. Taylor and the Jackson State Tigers. It is a loss that puts this season into perspective. Now you have a loss to FAMU. Obviously, you lost to Texas State, and now losing to Alabama State in a game that essentially will guarantee that you won't go back to the SWAC championship game, because now you need FAMU, who hasn't lost the SWAC game. You would need them essentially to lose 3 times, and they haven't even lost the game yet. So it kind of puts the season into perspective. Now, all is not lost for JSU. Just because you have 3 losses, you're 4-3 on the year, you still have a chance to finish the season strong. But it's got to start this upcoming week. Like, it's got to start in this game against Mississippi Valley, because you were coming off an Alabama A&M win. Granted, you gave up a ton of points to Xavier Langford at the end of the game. You still looked impressive as an offense. And as an offense, even though you struggled against Bethune-Cookman, you thought you would look impressive in this game. And that just simply wasn't the case. And it begs to ask, is it time to possibly see more of Zy McDonald? Like, what is the issue that you believe with JSU? Is the issue, I saw people on Twitter or Twitter X or whatever, and I saw you guys saying Jason check down Brown. A lot of folks don't like the fact that Jason Brown, one, he throws a lot of bad passes all the way across the field that should be intercepted. He could have had like 2 or 3 interceptions in this Alabama State game, just throwing from one hash to the other hash with no zip, and it just hangs forever. And then it's nothing. You're not hitting teams over the top at all. And you're not getting the ball to your guys, your big time playmakers, the Seven McGee's, the Rico Powers, or whoever they may be. You're not able to get the ball to them in space. And that's disturbing. That is a problem. That is not something that I thought would be an issue with all the weapons that JSU has. Between Irv Mulligan, Ahmad Miller in the backfield, Moultrie in the backfield. Then on the outside, Rico Powers, Isaiah Spencer, Fabian McCray, Duke Miller. These guys have made plays for you before. And the fact that that couldn't happen against a Bama State team that was kind of reeling, a Bama State team that hasn't had the season that they expected, a Bama State team that could look over to Grambling and see their former quarterback balling out and they're still having quarterback issues. That's tough. Like that is really, really tough for JSU to lose this game. And now if you're Coach TC Taylor, what do you do? What do you do to kind of make sure this season doesn't derail? Now you got Valley. I hate to say it, but that's a good game to have after a bad loss is to go play Valley. But maybe Valley just found their quarterback of the future. The one thing I will say about this next stretch of games, there's 2 games in a row that you should win quite convincingly. That is Mississippi Valley next week, and then the week after you have UAPB. Those are games where JSU, if you're going to get back on track and you're going to try to set yourself up for the future being next year, you gotta be impressive in those games. You have to go out and exert your dominance over Mississippi Valley and over UAPB. Because you can't lose games like Bama State, especially on homecoming. You know, Eddie Robinson Jr. said last year, I hope they schedule us for their homecoming and we're going to bring it to them. Well, that's exactly what his team did. His team was able to run the ball just enough, not great, but just enough to win that game. Another big problem for JSU has been special teams. Their special teams have been awful all year, and it proved once again this last game. After the offense would get off the field by not producing anything through the air, on the ground, they would punt it away, and they'd have these piss poor punts by Matt Knoll. That's no disrespect to Matt Knoll, but the punts were awful. The punts traveling, one punt traveled -1 yards, punts traveling 20, 25 yards. That's bad, man. Like, you're not helping your team at all when you have a 20-yard punt, when you have a punt that travels less than 30 yards. That's tough. It's hard to win football games when things like that are happening. Like I said, the special teams has been awful for JSU all year, and it proved once again to really give them issues in this game against Bama State. Now, for Bama State, it's an awesome win. It wasn't pretty, wasn't pretty at all, but you came on the road. Getting a road win in the SWAC is always tough, and you were able to do it on another team's homecoming day. And, hats off to Coach Eddie Robinson Jr. and those guys. Walking your trap, take over your trap is what they were saying on their way out of Jackson. They said they were the real homecoming kings. I seen it. That ain't what I said. That's what he said. Jackson State, though, you're going to have to hit the drawing board, man, and figure out throughout the rest of the season, is Jason Brown the guy you want to go with, or do you want to see Zy McDonald as the QB1? Do you want to see more snaps taken by Jacobian Morgan? What do you have to do? Because 19 points just ain't going to cut it. Not when your defense is putting up a performance like they were. Now, they gave up some cheap touchdowns at the end after some bad punts, but 19 points just ain't going to cut it. Not when you hold the other team to under 200 yards, total yards. It's a lot for Coach TC Taylor to take a look at, a lot for Coach TC Taylor to see, like, how can we save this season? How can we make this season still a successful one, even if it doesn't mean we're not going back to the SWAC championship or hosting another SWAC championship or going back to the Celebration Bowl? Because that has been the standard. The standard has been hosting SWAC championships, winning SWAC championships, and going back to the Celebration Bowl. That's not going to be the case this year, but how can you make sure this year is not a wasted year? How can you make sure this team still is locked in and buys into what you're selling for the rest of the season without those major prizes that have been at the end of the season not being there this year? It's going to be interesting to see how he navigates that and how his coaching staff continues to navigate those things when this team is used to so much success that they've had over the last few years that they won't be able to have this year because of the losses that they've sustained. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Jackson State suffers a bad loss to Bama State. Can they salvage this season the rest of the way? My name is Jeff Lightsy Jr. This is the Victor Formation Sports Show right here on Jeff Lightsy Jr. YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your content. Do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and the notification bell because we upload all the time. Thank you guys for tuning in. Also, you can follow me on Twitter X or Instagram at JLightsy7. That is on Twitter X or Instagram at JLightsy7. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.